Half-a-day students, I am Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. You all have been through a year of big changes. We've had to adapt and make big changes to keep our families and our island safe. But with change comes opportunity and a chance to try new things like PBS University. While Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and I will continue to do our part to keep our island safe, you students have a part to play as well. Your part is to keep learning and to keep up with your lessons. That's why I am happy to see you here ready to learn with PBS University. PBS University is a way to bring a continuous educational curriculum to you while you stay safe at home during this time. To help you keep up with your studies, we asked our friends at PBS Guam and the Guam Department of Education to put together this episode. Thank you for doing your part and have a great lesson.
Humanities Guåhan, an independent nonprofit organization affiliated with the National Endowment for the Humanities, is dedicated to promoting public humanities programming for the people of Guam and providing foundational support and educational resources for our island community. For more information about Humanities Guåhan, visit www.humanitiesguahan.org. The following webinar series is part of a project presented by Humanities Guåhan entitled Unincorporated, Voting, Voices, and Visions Para Guåhan. This project explores Chamorro stories, experiences, and perspectives on civic engagement in relation to voting rights, democracy, political status, and Chamorro self-determination. Unincorporated consisted of the 5-part webinar series that took place from January through May 2021 and covered topics on the origins of Chamorro self-determination, the work of the Commission on Decolonization, the relationship between art and decolonization, and the role of the U.S. legal system as it relates to Guam's political status. The project culminated with the launch of an online and printed magazine distributed throughout the community, which consists of essays, creative reflections, and artwork exploring issues around Guåhan's political status and decolonization through the perspectives and historical and political experiences of the Chamorro people of Guåhan.
All right, so I'm going to rush through these. You got one in the upper left is Seti Bay, looking back. I love this shot. I painted it like 4 or 5 times because it kind of reminds me of what the Chamorros eat out towards before they see the Spanish Armada coming in, heading towards Umatic. There's so many of these places that are like that still on this island. And I really enjoy doing this, the leaning coconut tree over the river, because it takes you back in time. The painting to the right of that is our Yoji's limestone forest. This is called Duende's Throne. With the moss and stuff, I wanted to convey a sense of, one of the last pristine forests that we have in the limestone forest, undeveloped behind the university. It's just a beautiful place. Underneath that to the left, you have Lemai Trunk. The Lemai Trunk, this is actually right off Lost Pond. And the Lemai is actually one of those trees that I really feel close to, not because we have a lot of it at our ranch, but because of the sustenance that it provided for our Chamorros in the olden days. And so I do a lot of Lemai trees, and I just love the way the roots, the buttresses of that are so regal and so majestic that I just feel that whenever I run into one in the jungle, I have to paint it. And of course, the right, I've done so many iconic carabaos. The one here is called the Mayor. People ask me, why'd you call it the Mayor? This is the guy who stands next to the Manila Church almost every week, and it looks like he's greeting all the passerbys. So I kind of nicknamed him the Mayor because he looked like he was running for mayor every time I seen him. But a very old guy. I just love the majestic horns, and he continues to be part of my repertoire of subjects, and I'll probably be painting him until I don't see him anymore. This is a piece I did commission of Hilaan Laddie. It's currently hanging at the legislature. And just to give you an idea of the scale, I love working large. And one of the things I really enjoy doing is creating landscapes that people can enter and walk in. I want them to feel like they're there with me. Of course, I use my artistic license in exaggerating my own color scheme, But that's where I think artists take the liberty of enhancing and making things look better than what it really is sometimes. I think we have to do that because we want our audience to feel pride and joy in what they're looking at. This is a series in my studio, just to give you a little insight into my working process. I was fortunate enough to be given a commission to install a whole bunch of works, and these are like almost 8 feet by 4.5 feet at the T Galleria. And so when they offered this to me, I jumped on it. To the left here, if you look closely, you can see Fenna Lake. Fenna Lake is one of those hard to access landscapes that I was fortunate enough to be taken there by a friend who wanted me to commission works that remembered playing there as a kid. And it was really special to him to get a painting of that area. But it was so hard to get to. We had to go through farmland in order to get access to get the shots we had. We couldn't get the really main lake because that was closer to the Navy installation. So we just sort of stayed to where we could take the shots and using telescopic lenses and stuff, hiding from, if there's any guards or anything, we had to be careful with that. But it was such a beautiful place. I was honored to at least take hundreds of photos that I can work from to share it with the island. I almost thought I was in another land when I saw this lake because there were no houses for miles. And I just couldn't believe it was here. It was my first time seeing the lake in person. And I'm still to this day doing paintings of that. And then, of course, the Janapson piece right there. There's another Carabao piece. And of course, the iconic To Lover's Point and another shot of Ila and Lati. This one is called Bamboo Cathedral. Very special place. It's where the Menengang encampment was when the Chamorros were force marched to this location. And it's a really special place. When I took shots of this, it felt like I was in a church. And this is about 7.5, 8 feet by 4 feet wide. So it looks small, but it's actually a pretty big painting. And I wanted to really communicate a sense of spiritual being in this place. You could feel the presence of our ancestors, I felt, when I was taking this picture. And it was one of those shots that took me years to finally paint, because if I was going to paint it, it had to be for good reason, and it had to be big. So when I got the commission for T Galleria, that was my chance to actually do it. And I remember looking at this photograph for years saying, man, I want to paint this, but it has to be special. So when I got the commission, I definitely took that opportunity to actually create this piece, and I'm glad I got it out. On the downside, it is in the VIP lounge. So if anyone wants to see it, unless you're paying $50,000 quarterly at DFS, it may be hard to see. So, but it is there. If you manage to stroll around the Galleria, you may end up running into it when they move it around. And this is, again, part of the series. These are all over close to 80 inches by maybe 45 inches wide. Very tall paintings. You got Janapson to the left, in the middle, Hila and Ladi, again, paying homage to a lot of landmarks across the island. Here, this is actually a pretty big piece. It's a diptych, 2 paintings put together as one, close to 8 feet by 90 inches, whatever that comes out to. But again, done in sort of the Impressionist manner of Monet, sort of my take on Monet's Lily Pond, this being Lost Pond. I'm a big admirer of the Impressionists, but at the same time, I don't want it to be, hyper realist in terms of duplicating my photograph. I really wanted to bring my aesthetic as an artist for people to appreciate art in general in terms of how it makes us feel. And, when I do my work, I would rather have the subtle approach as opposed to taking a proactive stance on my work being too narrative. Using work as a political tool can be very, very delicate and marginalizing your audience. So you got to figure out, do you want to reach everybody, or do you want to just reach a select few? And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of stay away from works that are too political, and chose the landscape route or the abstract route where people can approach it more on a spiritual level. On the left here is just 3 minutes from my front door in Mount Santa Rosa. You got this view, this expanse of Guam, and this is part of my sky series on the top of the mountain. It's more of a hill, but looking south towards Guam, you can see a little hint of, I guess, looking towards Upper Harbor, but you can see almost both sides of the island from the top of Mount Santa Rosa. And it's a place I go to constantly. I'll be driving home and I see a sunset going down, and you'll see me hiking up there like right away before it gets dark. And I still have hundreds of shots that I still want to do of that particular area. To the right is, again, Fonte River Junglescapes. Again, I just want to take people there to these hard to reach places, especially the Manuncle, to remind them, where they came from. And who knows, maybe they could think of when our grandfathers and grandmothers used to go down and wash in the river. And it's funny too, when I do these junglescapes and I see a can of Coke, an empty can on the ground, I never include it in my landscapes. I intentionally paint them so that there are really no vestiges of man interfering with nature. I just sort of want to do that. I'll take litter right out of it. And that's one of the perks of being an artist. And I believe this might be the last painting. This is a painting of the beachfront property up at Janapsan, very close to my heart, pride of my family. My grandfather used to raise copra here in rows and rows of coconut trees. And one thing, this is the windward side of the island, so it was very, very hard to plant coconut trees on the beach. And this was the one tree, when I would come back during the summer from college, I would make it a point to take a whole wheelbarrow full of coconut trees and put them out there. And the following summer, they would all die. But this was the one tree that just stood firm and managed to survive. And it's been there ever since. So it's a very special tree at Janapsan that has managed to hang on. And I guess as a metaphor, it represents us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Castro. I mean, just personally, just seeing your work, it's just absolutely stunning and breathtaking. And I would imagine for those who are off island and don't have access to those places, that it's makes people mahalang. So congratulations, they really are amazing. I could stare at those all the whole hour, but unfortunately we can't. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is Miss Cara Flores. She's an indigenous filmmaker native to Guåhan. She is a co-founder and director of NIHI, a nonprofit that produces culture-based media to affirm identity, to lift up the CHamoru and other indigenous perspectives from across our region, and to empower the next generation of protectors. Flores directed and produced the majority of media for the Guam Museum's permanent exhibit, including a short film on the origins of the CHamoru people, Hinanauta. She continues to make short films, her most recent, Angumupo Itzancleta, a short comedy in CHamoru that honors her grandmother, Justa Flores, along with all CHamoru and Pacific Nanas. Cara is a 2019 Obama Foundation leader for Asia Pacific. Ms. Flores, the floor is yours.
Afide, thank you so much for having me and for the audience for joining us. I am excited to share a few short clips with you, and I'm not going to talk too much about the specific clip before sharing it, but I think it's a really good first clip to show. This film plays in the Guam Museum. It's the origin story of the CHamoru people, and it's a combination of both our creation story as well as the story of migration. And you'll see a few pieces of it, but if you'd like to see the whole thing, then you would go to the Guam Museum.
Bayusangani Hamzu, Purihinanauta, Dostumeluha Guaha, Un Palauan, Zan Un Lahi, Iman Mofona Namanyainata. Was maplanea todo itinatinasia. Siha ifinenena na mananyata ni tsogu inanaunia gitasi.
So that's a little sneak peek. So the story of the origin story for me is a really important story when it comes to our sovereignty and decolonization, because it really grounds us as a people in a few really unique beliefs, specifically about the land and about our obligations to our community or to future generations. For those of you who aren't familiar with the story, there is a brother and sister who lived forever. And at some point, they knew that their lives would come to an end. And so they planned together what would come next. And so for us as Chamorro people, land is quite literally ancestor. And you can look at that in many different ways. For me, connections to land remind me of my own grandparents and the way that we can kind of trace back our history and through the people that we love the most, right, is really, it's quite a special thing that we're able to do. And so I felt really honored to be able to produce and direct this piece in spite of an impossible budget. If you have the opportunity to visit the Guam Museum, and I'm not sure what their hours are during COVID, but Kerri, who's the next artist, is one of the actresses on the canoes. And she also helped to carve some of the pieces for that shoot. And coincidentally, I'm wearing a pair of her earrings right now. So I hope that you do have a chance to visit the museum.
If I can interject really quick, Ms. Flores, I just had a question. How do you envision your work with the team at NIHI and within the community as affecting social change?
This was actually not a NIHI production. It was separate. But at NIHI, we have a very clear mission. And that mission really is to reconnect kids and all viewers to the land, to our culture, to our language, and to equip them with the knowledge or to help them feel empowered enough to be the next protectors. And again, when we think about sovereignty and power, those who are in power make decisions about what happens to our land. And you can imagine that those of us who believe that land is ancestor or is sacred would make very different decisions about our land versus folks who might believe that land should produce money for us. So yeah, at NIHI, we're hoping that kids see that our cultures are special, that who we are is valuable, that what we have is worth protecting. And so in the next few clips, you can kind of see on this screen that there are several different formats that we produce in. Over the last year, or I should say the year before COVID, we introduced a new series called Kids Talk. And I think we produced maybe 20 some so far. And it's a series that facilitates intergenerational conversations around, it could be issues or cultural themes, but I won't talk any more about it. I think the highlights in this video will kind of give you a taste of it.
Hafidi.
Hafide. Ali.
Aloha.
Jauzuba. Kasililia.
Nyara.
Just Judy.
Just say Judy hello.
Hansina Anma.
Inan Husiganiza. Stefani. I'm Yvonne.
Tifaitong.
Ava.
I'm JV.
I'm Allison. Right. Hello, my name is Nolan. You could call me Nolan for short. Gualsi Inina.
Guausi Amber.
Guasi Mama Chel.
What do kids do when they're angry? What's the name of your wife? Did you ever, had toys during the war? What is the name of your grandchild?
Money is only temporary, but land is forever.
Yes.
We are only caregivers for generations to come.
Our culture and our land are both connected.
The ocean is our father, and the land is our mother.
Decolonization really is about us being empowered, right? To see ourselves in a positive light.
You know, Native cultures throughout the world and indigenous cultures, some of their practices include, when I'm going to make a decision about something today, I have to think about how it's going to affect 7 generations after, right? Because the world, our land that we live on, our island of Guåhan, is not just for us in the present, but how do we protect it for the generations to come too? So that's why, to me, our work is very big and it's very heavy and we need to finish it, right?
Writing history.
That's right. And participating in creating it too.
So yeah, we've been really lucky to be able to have such amazing guests and kids join us on that series and have conversations that are really important. And we hope that those conversations have gone beyond the walls of our studio and that families will start having these conversations around invasive species, around protecting our land, around conservation, decolonization, that those conversations will start happening in people's living rooms and at their dinner tables. And yeah, so that's the last series that Nihi has been working on. Up and coming, we are producing a series right now called Eat With Your Ancestors, which looks at traditional food sources and again facilitates intergenerational conversations between kids and their elders. So I'm excited to share that, although I'm not sharing it here. The next piece that I'm going to share with you is from a few clips from a very short film that I did called Malingu Zamasoda, which roughly translates to Lost and Found. And this short skit it was kind of an experiment for a bigger film that I'd like to do. And in this film, it's a post-apocalyptic world. There's a girl who's been separated from her family and has survived with the skills that she's been taught, or pretty much with her connection to the land. And so we can go ahead and play this next clip.
Kiki. Chạm với nhà lấy, tôi phải qua lấy kháo.
So one thing that I try to do, or that I think within our community, because there isn't a lot of funding for film, a lot of times we have to rely on our friends and family to volunteer, to do things that they would otherwise get paid a bunch of money for. But something that I feel a lot of pride in is that for the museum piece, for Nihi Productions, for the last little film clip that you saw, and for this one, it's pretty much all Indigenous productions. So the majority of folks on the credits at the museum are CHamoru folks that either live in Guam, or we had a couple of folks that contributed audio design and produced the soundtrack for the Guam Museum, and CHamoru folks who are working in LA. For this next film, the same is true, that it's all produced here for both of these last two films. This next film that I'm sharing and the previous one, Microchild created the soundtrack to it. And it was just a beautiful, for both of them, beautiful, beautiful pieces of art. So the thing that's so cool about film is that it's not the artwork of just one person, that it becomes a collaborative piece where a lot of times, and depending on how collaborative, I guess, the director is, a lot of times what you think may be the vision, when you have other artists working with you, you come out with something better than what you could have imagined on your own. So that's one thing that I really love about film. This last clip that I'm going to share with you is really special to me because this film was or is a tribute to my grandmother. I think that part of sovereignty and creating is, when I was working through this film, I was told, it doesn't have enough conflict. You need to have a source of conflict. And for me, I was trying to recreate a scene that I remember very well in my grandmother's living room from when I was a child. And so I almost wasn't creating for an audience. This was something that was...
These webinars can be accessed on Humanities Guåhan's Facebook page. To view the online magazine associated with Unincorporated Voting, Voices, and Visions Para Guåhan, visit humanitiesguåhan.org/unincorporated.
Hafa students, I'm Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. For more than a year now, you all have continued to wash your hands and watch your distance from others, and you've done a really great job wearing your masks. We know your parents and guardians have helped you to make these changes to keep yourself and your community safe. As Governor Leon Guerrero said, we are happy you are here. We want you to continue to learn and sharpen your skills with the help of PBS University. This program is the result of a collaborative effort. We couldn't do it alone. I'd like to thank the teachers and support staff of the Guam Department of Education and PBS Guam for their work and their commitment to our students. I'd also like to thank you students for participating at home. To your parents, I'd like to thank you for taking an active role in your child's education. We are all eager to return to a time when all of us can share and study together in person. Until then, we hope you learned something new from this PBS University instruction.